Mike. All right, we'll go ahead and get the meeting called to order. Would you please take roll?
Ms. Atkins? Mr. Houston? Mrs. McDaniel? Mrs. Peterson?
Here.
Mr. Stoffer?
Here.
Mr. Wyledge? Mrs. Sheffel?
Here. Can I get a motion to approve the August 7th, 2023 agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We do have a change. We will not have an open enrollment request, so 8.05 will go off.
Yep, and we actually, we have a van purchase that came at the last minute, so I did send out a new agenda to the non-paral. We put it on our website. So there is a 704 moved to 705, and then 704 became a 12-passenger van purchase.
Okay, any discussion? Vote, please.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Wyledge?
Yes.
Mrs. Sheffel?
Yes. Commendation and good news.
So I do have one big news I want to share for this one, and that is you're going to pull up a picture for me, Dr. Hartman. And it is a picture of the upgraded, or I should say updated bathrooms. A little hard to see up there, but just a lot more modern. It's a lot cleaner look. They still have petitions to do. They'll do those next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but this should be all completely done by the end of next week. So just a much cleaner look than what we had before. So, and the sinks and the countertops will be installed, I believe he said tomorrow, but so coming right along. It's a lot of toilets.
Yeah.
So
Looks good.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same, we copied the same pattern that we had in the auditorium edition with those bathrooms, just to try to make some sort of continuous look, so.
Okay, anyone else? Commendation and good news? Okay, comments and suggestions. This is the first time during our agenda that anyone in the audience or anyone online, if they'd like to type something in, can address the board. Right, hearing none, we'll go on to our consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Do we have an updated personnel sheet?
Yes, we do.
There we go. Is there any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Wyledge?
Yes.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Sheffel?
Yes. Report 7.01, Superintendent Report.
So we have, right now, we have registration going on. We'll have it tonight. Next week, we have open house for our elementaries at the end of the week, and then we actually have our new staff reporting next Tuesday, and we have the rest of our staff is reporting on Friday, well, Thursday or Friday. Teachers are reporting on Thursday, and then on Friday, we'll do our big all-staff meeting, which you guys are all invited to, and that is at 8:30 in the morning, 7:30 if you want breakfast, and we will do our back-to-school kickoff, and then they go off and start working in their classrooms and have their meetings and et cetera, et cetera. So, and then the following week, we have a couple more supply drop-offs for the middle school, high school, and then we are hitting the ground running as of August 23rd with kids. So, still a lot of work to be done. I just met with our maintenance crew this morning, and they're a little stressed because but this time of year happens every year. And so we'll get through it, and you might see me out wielding that old weed eater again, so that's just fine, gives me a little exercise, so, but yeah, so we're excited about that. Fall sports are underway, so they're all practicing this week. We are closing up, getting so close to closing up the final payout at the auditorium. We do have some things we need to address, but we're getting closer with that. We have some big camps going on yet this week. We have the little kids cheer and dance camp going on. And one of the things that I think I'm excited about here at Lewis Central is just the fact that we do have so many opportunities for young kids with camps. I know every school throws camps, but it seems like if you're a Lewis Central kiddo, there is a camp, school-sponsored camp thrown at you about every week from the beginning of summer until clear to the end of the summer, and it's really awesome. So we are going to finish up the scoreboard, hopefully by the end of this week. It's supposed to be last week, but they're waiting on something. So we'll get that finished up at the end of this week and get it turned on. And then we will have our opening game on Friday, August 25th against Harlan. And we will do a kind of a ribbon cutting type of thing in the beginning of it. So not a new complex, but new field, new scoreboard. So just kind of a kickoff to new things. And Iowa Western will also be invited to be our designated coin flipper, as well as the board and the Booster Club as well. So our community partners who, without them, the field and the scoreboard would have been much more difficult to attain. So, but that is, again, that's on the 25th, and it's going to be a great game to come out to. So, and that's it.
That's it. All right. We'll go on then to our discussion items. 8.01, IASB recommended policy updates due to legislative changes, first and final reading.
So every year IASB puts out, anytime the legislation changes and it requires schools to change their policies, they allow it to kind of be a one and done policy change. There's nothing we can really do to edit these policies other than if we don't want to be in compliance. So the first couple of them deal with anti-bullying and anti-harassment. And so one of the things that they put in here is the main change is that we now are required to notify parents within 24 hours of a complaint, regardless where we are in the investigative process. So from the time we hear about an alleged bullying incident, we have within 24 hours have to notify the victim's parents or who is the alleged victim.
Only the victims?
What's that?
Only the victims?
Only the victims.
Okay.
That's the way it's spelled out. So 24 hours to notify the alleged victims. And then I also changed a few things in there because, for instance, we no longer have a special populations director. And so those will go to Dr. Hartman. So she's taking on those investigations when they go beyond a level 1, which is your administrator in the building. So the next one is the child abuse reporting. It used to be that we only had to have full-time employees take the child abuse training. Now, all employees over the age of 18, regardless of whether you work an hour a week or full-time, have to take the training. The next one is required professional development for employees. So right now, they changed the law to that we can only require our teachers to take professional development that is specifically listed as the state as a required professional development. So we can still require that they attend meetings. We can still require that they're physically present. We just can't require them to take the PD. Luckily, and we've talked about this, I feel like our staff is very invested in what we have going on. A lot of it's because it's led by staff. The decisions and what we're moving forward with our professional development training, that's all designed and decided and led by staff. So I don't think it's really going to affect us too much. And then we do have these student disclosures of identity. So this was part of the bathroom bill where they came out and said, that students are no longer allowed to choose the bathroom. They now have to go in the bathroom of the gender that they are born with and currently have. And so and that's for any multi-occupancy bathroom. So that's single occupancy. We've changed a lot of the tags on the doors just to be all gender. That's kind of becoming the new thing. So in a single occupancy, they can, it doesn't matter which bathroom they go in there, as long as it says all occupants. For a multi-occupancy, you can only go in the ones that you have that physical gender to. And then they also put in there that if a student were to come to us and make it known that they wanted to identify as the opposite sex, that we are now obligated to call and inform their parent from the time we hear about it. So, and if they want to be called something different, if they want to be called a different name, that we are not allowed to call them that different name until the parents fill out a form, which is that 50372. The parents have to fill out a form that requires us to, that says, yes, I approve, and we're now going to, utilize this name for the student. So, so that's what that is. Testing programs from now on, anything that discusses a child or that asks children to talk about or provide any kind of social emotional competencies, we need to communicate that with parents and allow them the opportunity to opt out. For graduation requirements, they added in some automatic credit for students who are in ROTC and or serve as pages in the legislative session. They can get some social studies credits for doing that, which I think is good. And then they added a whole litany of medication, administration of medication, and this was kind of a full rewrite on their behalf. They went in and they wanted it to be more parent focused and student focused, as far as parents now are the ones that dictate, that what medicine we're going to give, when we're going to give it, which is kind of funny because we've always done that. Like, I don't know of a time where I've ever heard a nurse say, you're going to take Tylenol, I don't care what your parents say. Like, it's always kind of been a rule, so I thought that was interesting. We're not allowed to do any sort of in-depth, what's it called? Where we, we're not supposed to diagnose things, or we're not supposed to, like if a student says they're hurt, we're not allowed, so kind of more communication with parents, which I feel like we already did do a really good job at that, so. But that's fine. If they want to make it a policy, we will go along with it. Makes it easier to follow. School calendar. So this is kind of a big one. The state now allows us to have 5 online days a year. Just FYI for all those listening, I'm definitely not a fan of that, because your hours are based on your grade level that has the least amount of attendance time. And right now for us, that is kindergarten. And so I have no idea how we would ever anticipate that we're going to successfully educate kindergarten students online. So in a mass group, I think that requires too much structure and making sure that parents are well trained and that they have the time, and it assumes they have the time and the expertise and to be able to deliver a full day of instruction. And especially at that young age where we're developing reading and writing, and we're working on social emotional, I just think it makes a lot more sense to have them in person. So not saying it's never going to happen, I'm just saying I'm not a huge fan of it. So next one is health education, or there's kind of a health education, instructional materials, selection of instructional materials, instructional and library materials, inspection and display. So all of these kind of came through in the parental rights bill, where they came out and said parents have the right to view and to access information, instructional information at all times. Absolutely, they can. We already give them access to our Google Classrooms. If anybody were to ever call in and say, I want to review your curriculum, we'll absolutely give you access to, or a copy of our curriculum to review. This just makes it more formal. There is a more formal, when it comes to library materials, this is probably what gets the news the most, because they are requiring us to remove all books in the library that have obscene material, but they have not done a very good job of describing what obscene material is. We just know it's not the Bible. So, but they've gone through and said, you need to remove all the obscene material. We're still waiting on guidance or for the state to put out a set list of books. They have not indicated they're willing to do that. So it's going to be based on district. And so As parents, you know, if you find something and you think it needs to be removed from the library, there is a process. Please fill out a process. That actually helps us because, I mean, we have 1,000 books that go, you know, or more than that, thousands of books that are in our libraries. And so to think that anybody is going to be able to go through and read every word of the book. And for the most part, our libraries were built by people who read the majority of those books. Or they're built because they come on a national list of acclaimed authors and things that people have vetted for us and determined that it's appropriate for schools. Now, I don't disagree that what one person thinks is appropriate might not be appropriate for another person. So if you find something that you think is offensive or something that shouldn't be in there, by all means, submit the paper. That would be great because that helps us tremendously. And so we are going to continue to monitor this. We will continue to adapt. But at the end of the day, it's, you know, I've seen some districts that have already thrown out 400 books out of their library and some of which are very classic novels. And so, and now there's kind of a fight for those amongst those who say they should remain. So we're kind of on the wait and see till we act, just to make sure we do what's really best for kids. So, but once again, these are all legal policy, so it's not like we can't pass them. Or if we don't pass them, I gotta follow them anyway.
I was gonna say, Frank, to clarify that, because these are coming from IASB.
Correct.
But they're coming from them because of what has been passed in the
Correct.
legislature.
Yes, yes. This provides us the guidance that we need and really the structure. And that's what I like about it. It's structure to like requests and forms and that people can fill out and provide us that help us identify these books. We also are required to post all of our books out there for the public, and we do that through Destiny, so you can actually access our online library and you can kind of look through our books and see what we have out there. And then the final one is kind of repetition of when they kind of were looking at all the health policies. There's a student health services and student health services regulation. So these changes are specific to the fact that we can't, this was thinking of earlier, we can't do any sort of intrusive checks on any kind of students. Now, I don't know what those, intrusive checks are. I don't think we're doing too many intrusive checks, but we are going to make sure that students are okay and that they get the care that they need to. But at the end of the day, we're going to refer back to parents to provide the guidance or the wishes that they would like in order for us to move forward and best treat their kid. So, sorry, lots of policies.
Yeah, and you did summaries of every one.
Yep.
Is there any discussion? This is just the law changed, so
Yep.
we're changing to go by the law.
Correct.
Okay. All right, we can go then to 8.02, real estate purchase agreement amendments.
Okay. So there are a few amendments if you were to click into each one of those. So as you can see, these were actually prepared by our attorney as we go down. Things that you'll find in there revolve around, they wanted to, let me get down here. So we moved from 5 days to 10 days for the seller to provide paperwork after the agreement is signed. So if you guys approve it tonight, they will officially sign it tomorrow, and then they will, we'll get it in their hands, and then they have 10 days to provide us all of the proper documentations and paperwork, the abstracts and everything else for us to close the sale. If they included a provision that if we don't pass the bond or choose not to go through with the sale, that they get copies of our due diligence reports. That's our soil samples and those types of things. They apparently it's pretty customary. I don't necessarily have a problem giving them soil samples if it gets done. And then they wanted to add a disclosure that the land is in a floodplain, and I think we know that. Our entire campus is in a floodplain, almost the entire campus. And then on the Bowen property, there is a septic system, and so what we discussed was putting kind of a price point. We think it's going to be very little to remove if we have to remove it, but if the price exceeds $1,000, then the seller would have to cover any amount above and beyond that. So that's what we discussed.
So if we want to, they can't use any of our findings in in our work papers to challenge us on us choosing not to go through with the purchase, right?
Correct. That's 100% our decision.
Okay.
Yep.
The only concern that I have is if we give them our samples or our stuff, and they give it to another buyer and then it doesn't pan out to be the same, I don't want us to have any accountability for that.
Yeah.
So,
No.
and we're paying for it. They're not paying for any of it. So they're getting it for free.
Right.
So I'm not 100% on board with giving them our stuff, but if everybody's okay with it, then so be it.
Any other discussion on this? Okay. 8.03 Renaissance Software Renewal.
So this is, maybe I'll let Dr. Hartman, you want to talk about what this is?
Sure, so this is basically Illuminate is what we have used. We've used it quite a bit at the secondary level, and it contains our assessments. A lot of data is in this system. And so we've had it for many years, and this is just the renewal on it. So Brett and I have already had people today saying, hey, how can we get in there? We're looking for some data. So this is the renewal quote.
And that's the total amount, the 23,760, the 88?
Yep.
Okay. Is there any discussion? All right, we'll go then to the last one, 8.04, 12-passenger van purchase.
So I'll give you a copy of that, a hard copy of it here. So it's just we had a phone call from Edwards on Thursday, and so remember, this is one of those things where weird Iowa laws where we're not allowed to buy a 12-passenger, anything more than a 9-passenger van unless it's used, and it can't be more than a 12-passenger van. And so we're always on the lookout for these things with low miles and a decent price point. And so we've gone down to Kansas and picked them up. We've gone to Burlington and picked them up. We've gone up, when I was in Missouri Valley, we would go to Sioux Falls or Cedar Rapids. I mean, you just kind of go wherever these things pop up. So the fact that one popped up here in Council Bluffs, it's a 2015 3500 Chevy Express, 12-passenger. It's white. It's got 33,000 miles, and they're asking $33,680. That's a very good price point. Some of the ones we bought before were, maybe a little newer, like a 2019, but they're in the 42,000 range with about 50,000 miles. So just pretty excited it has such low miles. It came from a former daycare, and I know that because they still had the daycare stickers on the side. So, but yeah, just kind of always on the lookout for these. So we still have about 3 vans that we'd like to rotate out of our fleet. So the worst of those 3 vans will probably rotate out and become another maintenance vehicle, and then we'll keep our eye out for more vans.
So no road trip to get this.
No road trip. They will actually deliver
Woohoo.
from down the street. So
Okay. Is there any discussion? Okay, then we'll go on our agenda. The next is comments and suggestions. This is the second time during our agenda that anyone in our audience or anyone online could type something in to address the board. Okay. And hearing none, we'll go then to our action items. We have 10.01 IASB recommended policy updates due to legislative changes, and this will be on the first and final reading.
Madam President,
Mr. Houston.
I move to approve the policy changes as presented and recommended by IASB due to legislative changes.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Wyledge?
Yes.
Miss Adkins?
Yes.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel? Or Mrs. Sheppel, sorry.
Yes. 10.02, real estate purchase agreement amendments.
Madam President,
Mr. Houston.
I move to approve the real estate purchase agreement with the changes as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Wyledge?
Yes.
Miss Adkins?
Yes.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mrs. Sheppel?
Yes. 10.03, Renaissance software renewal.
Madam President,
Mr. Houston.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Renaissance software renewal for the amount of $23,760.88.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Wyledge?
Yes.
Miss Adkins?
Yes.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sheppel?
Yes. 10.04, 12-passenger van purchase.
Madam President,
Mr. Houston.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the purchase of the van from Edwards Automotive for $33,680.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Wyledge?
Yes.
Miss Adkins?
Yes.
Mr. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mrs. Sheppel?
Yes. Items of interest, future board meetings. Our next regular board meeting will be August 21st at 6:30. We have school
23rd,
starting the
Yeah.
23rd. Teachers coming back before
I
then.
am the 17th.
All right. Anything else we need to?
Nope, just a reminder that the first football game, we'll do the kickoff to the new field and scoreboard will be on the 25th, that Friday against Heartland. So,
Okay.
Was the 17th?
love to see a huge crowd. Was that?
I'm sorry. Was the 17th the first teacher day?
That's first teacher day. yeah.
In the morning.
And then the 18th is the
Welcome.
welcome day.
What
At
time,
the-
what time would that be?
That's gonna be right at, we'll start the welcome right about 8:30. Breakfast starts at 7:30.
And it'll be at the high school.
High school auditorium, yep. I got a fun surprise for them this year.
Ooh. Okay.
Can't say it now.
Oh, you'd ruin the
Could be watching,
surprise.
yeah.
You'd ruin the surprise. Okay. Anything else? We'll go ahead, and can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You can stay. Otherwise?